Hey everybody, Grant Kemp here from CreativeCashFlow.com. Today we get to talk about wraparounds. Wraparounds are one of my favorite strategies to use in this industry because you just make a ton of money in it. It's a lot of gears that are turning, it's a lot of complications that you've got to be aware of, but when you know what you're doing, you can really turn profits that nobody else can touch with liabilities that nobody else can touch. In other words, you have very little liability, you have a lot of profit coming in. So what is a wraparound? A wraparound is any time that you're financing someone a subordinate lien at a higher price or payment than the underlying lien is at. Okay, so that underlying lien could be anything. It could be a subject to lien, it could be a private money lien, anything like that. But if you've got a mortgage, let's say, that you take over subject to, and then you choose to sell it to somebody else for more money at a higher interest rate and a higher payment, that kind of thing, that's a wraparound. And we'll get into that and we'll explain a little bit more visually here in a second about how that works. Keys to making this work, one of the big items of that is going to be your contracts. You have to have good contracts. I use Horn & Associates here in Texas, hands down. I just feel like he's the best one. Scott Horn is the best one to use for this kind of stuff. Been in the business forever, able to do that kind of stuff. But contracts are really important to this. You're going to need to have watched several videos to make this all make sense. So you're going to owner finance. That's going to be one of the videos that talks more generally about the owner financing world and what we're talking about doing here. And then also the Dodd-Frank series. You really need to know about Dodd-Frank and the consumer protection laws that are going to be in place whenever you do a wraparound, because now you're doing a consumer transaction by putting somebody in there who's going to live in that property. You will need to have watched the 10b2 calculator video, the basic understandings video, the subject to video to really grasp what's going on here. So really study these things. This is the culmination of it all, guys. This is the fun part. This is where we really put all of these pieces of information that we've been learning over the past however long it's taken to get to this video and really put them into place. So again, sit back, enjoy. This is going to be fun. That being said, I'm stealing this phrase from somebody. I went and saw one of their live speaking events one time and they said this and I love it. I'm going to make you say this too. You have to repeat after me on this. I love numbers and numbers love me. Okay, so say it yourself. I love numbers and numbers love me. I'm going to wait until you say that. I can't hear you. I'm just joking with you. But yes, I love numbers and numbers love me. You've got to really be pumped up about this part because I'm going to throw a lot of numbers at you. There's going to be a lot of calculations that we're talking about here, but this is how, guys, you have to correlate. A number is a dollar. And if you want to learn how to make dollars, if you want to learn how to make money, you've got to learn how that money works on paper. And this is what we're talking about today. So let's visualize a little bit. Let's visualize what subject to and wraparounds, all that kind of stuff looks like. So a wraparound, let's imagine that we've got this pocket of debt right here. $80,000, 5 1/4, 22 years left on it. That means the payment is $511.59. This is a very typical type loan that we might be taking over on subject to. So we've got this debt in place. Now, if we sell this to somebody else, we're going to wrap around that debt and we're going to sell it for a larger price, a larger loan, a larger interest rate, 9.5%, a longer term, 30 years instead of 22, and that means that our payment coming in is $756.77. So when they make their $756.77 payment, we have to pay the $511.59, and the money that's in between that is our cash flow. That's how a wraparound mortgage works. We're wrapping around existing financing, whether that financing comes from a bank, from a private entity, however, we're wrapping around that to create a new mortgage, okay? Now, wraparounds are a sale strategy. They're a sales strategy. You're going to sell with wraparound mortgages. Similarly, you are going to buy with subject to. You are not going to buy with a wraparound. If you buy with a wraparound, you're going to be wasting a lot of money. If you sell with a subject to, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. Okay? So you really separate that out. In the basics video, we talk about the umbrella term of owner financing and how owner financing encapsulates several things. We've got subject to, we've got wraparounds and debt-free owner financing, that kind of stuff. This is why it's important to know the difference, is because when you buy with owner financing, you want to buy subject to. When you sell, you want to sell with a wraparound. And let's talk about why that is, right? Let's take a situation here. Let's look at a situation on an acquisition, and let's act like we're going to buy this property. So let's say that this house is worth $100,000. Vertically, we're just talking about stacks of money, right? It's just worth $100,000. Let's say that the seller owes $60,000 at 3%. They've got 15 years left on it, and that means their payment is $414.35. Okay? But For this seller to sell to us, the contract must say $90,000 on it. This is going to be one of those things where as you're talking to sellers, sometimes they're going to get fixated on a certain part that they want to see on the contract. Purchase price can be one of those items. Purchase price can be one of those things where they're like, look, I don't care. That contract has to say $90,000 on it or I'm not buying it, right? I will not sign this unless that contract says $90,000 on it. So as creative cash flowers, it's our job to find a situation where we can put $90,000 on the contract and still turn a bunch of money. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. Now, if we have this situation in front of us, we've got two options. We can buy it with wrap, we can buy it with subject to. Let's look at that. So option one, we've got their $90,000 purchase price. We've got a 180-month payoff, so we've matched the payoff terms of their underlying lien, which we said was 180 months. And that means that our total payment to them is $759.47. It's real easy how we got there. We took a $90,000 loan, we gave them 6% for 180 months, which is 15 years, and we came out with a payment of $759.47 a month. Okay? That would be the wrapped version. Now, what about the other option? What else do we have as an option to buy? Well, we can give them their $90,000 contract price. We can give them a 180-month payoff, but our payment this time is only $667.51. It's quite a bit different, right? We're saving almost $100 a month here. Why is that? Well, we're going to subject to the underlying lien. So we're going to take over sub 2 on that $60,000 debt. For that, we will be agreeing to pay $415 a month. Okay? Separate to that, we're going to give them a second lien, a subordinate lien from us to the seller, a second lien. Similarly, just like how you would give a second lien to your investor, you're just going to give a second lien to your seller. That second lien is going to be for the $30,000. That's the difference between the $90,000 contract price they want to see and the $60,000 that they owe. We're going to give them 6% on that, which is a great interest rate, and they're going to make $253 a month off of that. So you add those two things up, and that's where you get your $667 price. Let's peel this back a little bit. Let's look at why this is working this way. So we've got that $60,000 debt at 3% for 180 months, right? This is the seller's underlying lien. And then we've gone and we've contracted it for $90,000. This is where our wrap comes in, and we're talking about option one. We've contracted it for $90,000. Well, we're paying them $759 a month, okay? We're paying them $759 on a $90,000 note. Out of that $90,000, they're still having to make payments to this underlying lien. $60,000 of these $90,000 don't belong to them. $60,000 of those dollars belong to the bank. But what we're doing is we're paying them more interest on that $60,000. They're making a total cash flow of $345 every month, the difference between the $759 that we're paying them and the $414 that they're paying their bank. And if you look, it's because they're paying 3% on that 60, whereas we're paying them 6% on that 60, right? Because we're paying them 6% on the entire 90. Inside of that 90 is the 60. If you remember the visualization we had with the two bubbles, right? We had the two debt bubbles. Inside of that big bubble, that wrap, is the small bubble. So we're paying them 6% on 90, and within that 90, they've got to pay off 60, and they're only paying 3 on that. The difference in interest, the actual dollar difference, is almost $92 right there. That's where we're going wrong. That's why we don't want to buy with a wraparound, but that's precisely why we want to sell with a wraparound. That's precisely why we want to sell on the wrap, is because that is arbitrage. That is us playing the game and earning 9 or 9.5% on money that doesn't even belong to us. This is the really cool thing about subject to and owner financed wraps, is that we're charging 9.5% on $90,000, but we're only paying 3 on 60 or 70 or 80 of that, right? So we're making money on somebody else's money. We're charging interest on that first bit of money that doesn't even belong to us. That's what's happening here. That's why we don't want to go that route. So let's look at the other option. Oh, and yes, after that first $60,000 is done, there's still $30,000 left over. They're making $759 a month on that. Let's look at the other scenario. We've got option 2, same $90,000 contract price, same 180-month payoff, except this time we've got a $60,000 underlying debt of $414 a month, 180 months, We're still giving them a $90,000 contract, but this time we're splitting that out and we're saying, okay, I'll give you a $90,000 total contract, but the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take over on the 60, and then I'm going to give you a second lien of $30,000. And I'm going to give you 6% on that, and I'm going to make it payable for 180 months, and that's going to be $253 a month. Okay? So when you add those things together, that's the $667.51. That's our total payment every month. It's because we're no longer paying interest on that 60 grand. We're no longer paying extra interest, right? We're paying interest. We're paying interest to the bank, though. The bank is charging 3%, so we're paying 3% to the bank. But we're only paying 6% on the $30,000 second lien. So that saves us a bunch of money. So let's hammer that down into actual dollar amounts. What are we actually saving by doing option 2 over option 1? Well, let's look at option 1 here. If we peel this back a little bit, we're paying $759.47 a month every month for the next 180. That means we're paying a total of $136,704. That's $46,704 just in interest alone. Now, we peel back option 2, we're paying $667 a month for the next 180 months. That's $120,151 total. Total interest, we're only paying $30,150. We're paying $14,005 on the subject to loan, the 3% of $60,000. That adds up to $14,500 in interest. We're paying $15,567 of interest on the second lien, the 6% of 30. So in a total, we're only paying $30,150 on option 2. We've saved ourselves almost $17,000 by making one very minor change in the contract. There is not a seller out there that's going to know the difference right from the start, right? There's not a seller out there that when you say, okay, I'm going to give you the 90 you want, I've got to pay 60 to the bank, that leaves 30 left over, so I'll give you that 30 in a lien position, and I'm going to pay you 6% on it. They're happy with that. Versus if you told them, okay, I'll give you the $90,000, I'll get you paid off in 180 months, and I'm going to pay you 6% on that. To them, it's the same thing. They're hearing the same thing either way. To them, unless you show them both options right next to each other, it makes no difference, right? But to you, you just saved $17,000, which is no joke. That's real money. That's actual money that you can go spend. That's a good vacation. You go $17,000 vacation, you're doing all right, right? You're spending a month and a half someplace with someone. So that is why we're talking about buying with subject to and selling with a rep. So let's convert this to our sales side. Let's talk a little bit more about why we sell with our wraparound. Let's look back at this debt. $80,000, 5 1/4, 22 years, means $511.59 on our payment. Again, this is very typical. This is something we run into. Well, if we sell that, right, we take that subject to and we sell that on a wraparound for $90,000 at 9.5%, well, we're actually going to sell it on a 30-year note. This is one of the big secondary keys to why wraparound mortgages are really nice. It's because we're selling it for actually a longer period of time than we owe the money on the underlying debt, which allows us to ultimately make a lot more money. So what we're going to do here is we're going to look at it this way. Before I was doing vertical stacks and we're thinking a stack of cash. Now I'm going to do horizontal lines, thinking about like a timeline, right? So we've got a 22-year debt that's going to get paid on this. $80,000 over the next 22 years, $511 a month, okay? Then what we're going to do is we're going to come in underneath it and we're going to wrap it. And we're going to sell it on a 30-year term, but we're selling it for more money. We're going to sell it for $100,000. We're going to take a 10% down payment, which is $10,000. And that's going to leave us with that $90,000 note, like I mentioned in the last one, right? I said we had a $90,000 wrap. That's how you get that, is because you're selling for more and you're collecting a down payment. That's going to be on a 9.5% interest. That's going to give us $756 a month. Well, you put those two things together and you've got a cash flow of $245 every month coming in, which A, is pretty sweet. But let's look even at that. That $245 a month, that's only during the period where we have to pay off this underlying lien. That $245 a month is only while we're paying this debt service to the bank that we bought subject to. What happens after that is we get $756 every month for 8 more years. Because we paid off the underlying debt in 22 years. We sold on a 30-year note, so now we've got 8 more years where we're going to be collecting this full payment of $756.77, and all of that now goes to us. This is the big advantage. So we're charging interest on a larger amount for a longer period of time and collecting all the benefits from that. So what does that actually mean as far as profits? Well, during that cash flow period, that's $245 a month for 22 years, you're going to have made almost $65,000. During that next section of the $756 every month for the next 8 years, you're going to make about $73,000. But we still have the down payment from up front. We still collected $10,000 up front. Now, $3,000 of that we will assume has been paid to an agent for bringing the buyer in. But ultimately, we're still netting $7,000 from that. So what does that look like in total income? You just turned $142,377 of net income off of a deal that only had $20,000 in equity in it. We took it over subject to at 80, right? The house was only worth 100. And we just made $142,000 off of that deal. Now, granted, time value of money, you got to factor that in, right? You're getting this over time. But even shoot, you take off a third of that, you take off a half of that off of the time value of money, which it isn't even going to do that, and you're still turning a lot of cash off of this, guys. This is why I love wraparounds. This is why I love this strategy, is because you're able to really collect that money. And let me ask you this, by the way. If you sell this property to a homeowner, you're their bank. You have become the bank for them. That's how the wrap works, is you're now the bank. Those of you out there who have a mortgage on your house, when was the last time you called Wells Fargo and told them that your toilet was leaking? When was the last time that you called Bank of America and you said that your faucet wasn't working and you needed somebody to come out and take a look at it? The bank doesn't care. What does the bank care about? They care about their payment. You better pay them on the 1st, or you're getting phone calls on the 15th and you're getting foreclosed on if that payment doesn't get made. You're the owner. You pay taxes. You pay insurance. That's your responsibility. You pay for the repairs. That's your responsibility. Guys, that's what we're doing. We don't have responsibilities to this house. We are the bank. Their responsibility to us is pay us every month. That's what they were responsible for. And if they don't, we'll foreclose, probably get the property back, and to be honest, make a ton more money that way. Watch our foreclosures video so that you can understand the fact that even our worst case scenario, which is a foreclosure, we still end up making a ton more money. Now, ethically and morally, we've got to put people in there that we believe can make these payments. It's very important that you make sure that when you're putting somebody in there, you believe, honestly, that they're going to be able to pay you. But if they can't, you're going to make a lot of money, and that's okay. Our bad case scenarios come out on top for us. This is why wraparounds are so great. So here's some quick tips of things that I just want you to pay attention to and understand, because they're semi-common tripping points for newer investors, because it's just stuff that you might not really think of right up front. 1, prefer principal over interest. Prefer principal over interest. You have the option of getting the same exact payment, but you can have either a higher principal or a higher interest to get you there. Our world is dictated by payments. I've said this before. It's kind of like the leasing world and cars, right? Like, our world is dictated by the payment. The payment is what decides if somebody can or can't afford the house whenever they're trying to buy it from you. And so if we can make that same payment, for instance, a $90,000 mortgage at 6% for 30 years, that's $539.60. But I can also get a $539.60 payment by giving them a 9% interest on a $64,000 lien. Okay? I'm going to prefer a $90,000 mortgage at 6% to get that payment. And why is that? Why would we prefer principal over interest? Well, think about this. What happens if the buyer sells the property next year? Okay? If they sell that property next year, you get your principal paid off. You don't get your interest paid off. If they refinance with a new bank, you get your principal paid off. You don't get your interest paid off. If you decide to sell the note, they're buying off of a base of your unpaid balance on the note. They're not buying off of what your potential earnings were, right? So it's ever so much more important to get that payment through principal than it is to get that payment through interest, all right? So twist your mind around that. It's a good thing to really keep in mind, because there's going to be a day that you say, well, Grant told me to charge 9.5% on my mortgage, but because of these rent rates, I can only charge 7%. I don't know if I'm going to do that, right? Well, if you're making the cash flow and you've got the principal, do it. It's okay. It's okay to charge less interest and make your money off of the principal because, again, if they sell, if they refinance, if you sell the note, it's all based on the principal of that mortgage, not on the potential earnings. Similarly, larger interest than on your underlying debt is actually okay. If you have a larger interest rate on your underlying lien than you do on your wraparound mortgage, that's okay. Look at this example. We've got a $64,000 lien at 9.5% for 30 years. That's $539 a month. But when we wrap it, we're wrapping with a larger principal amount, right? So if you've got a larger principal amount, in this instance, I go to a $90,000 principal at 9%, which is a half point lower than our underlying debt. Our payment coming in is $724. That's still a couple $100. You're still cash flowing a couple $100 on that. So that's another thing to wrap your mind around, right? If you are with a really high interest rate on the underlying debt, depending on how much of a principal difference you have between the underlying debt and your sales price, that could be okay because you're charging a lower interest rate on a lot more principal, which turns out to be a bigger payment. And in this case, you've got a couple $100, even though you've got a half point below in interest. Just some real quick tips. Have your buyer pay all the closing costs. Guys, this is part of the world that we're living in, right? The buyer pays the closing costs when it comes to owner financing. So don't worry too much about closing costs on the back end when you're selling it to your buyer because that's something that you should pass those costs on to them, including the RMLO fee, the attorney's fees, the title search, all that kind of stuff, right? With RMLO being said, make sure that you properly qualify your buyers with an RMLO. Guys, I founded Texas Pride Lending several years ago. I since sold that company, but I know how they operate intimately because obviously I built the company. So I believe in what Texas Pride Lending does as far as the RMLO services. That's who I use still, even though I sold the company. That's who I still use, and I still am on their board for compliance and large accounts and that kind of thing. But use an RMLO so that you're making sure that everything is qualified. And just for the record, I'm not getting any kind of financial reward from this referral. You know, I'm not involved in that way. This is just a genuine referral. And then retain those records for 5 years. Once you get your records, retain them for 5 years. That's what you need to have on file in case you get audited, something like that. All right. So wraparounds. Wraparounds are just such an awesome, awesome way to make money in this business. If you need more information, don't hesitate to, creativecashflow.com. If you want to upgrade accounts. Obviously, I give a discount if you're already an existing student. Any of my personal mentor students get access to all the videos, all the resources, as well as my personal mentoring. And don't forget, go out, find us, find Propelio. I joke about it. I'm standing in front of this giant banner of Propelio.com. I genuinely believe in Propelio.com. I think it's a great product for you. Yes, they're sponsoring these videos, but I've been hawking this even since before they sponsored this video, or these video series. I just really like what they're doing. Daniel Moore, the co-founder of this company, is legit. He knows how this business works, and he knows how you work. So I do encourage you, go out there, check it out. Sign up for their product. It's a great way for you to get comps and everything, and a great CRM, and they've got some really cool things coming down the line, constantly staying on top of things. So reach out to them, reach out to me, and keep in touch. Keep watching these videos.